I'm Mrs. Osborne, and I'm the speech therapist at the Leola School. And these are the preschool boys and girls and some of the primary speech students that we have. And they've come together today to hear some good stories. Sound like a fun day?
Yeah.
You know, the best thing I like about books is books, and Sullivan, we need to have everybody sitting up big and tall, remember, so they can hear. The best thing about a book is that when you pick it up, you can just open it up, and then all kinds of fun things begin to happen. You know, I brought some friends with me today. Who knows what this is?
A bear.
What kind of a bear?
A polar bear.
Polar bears. Do we have...
And there's another polar bear.
And this is the baby. Do polar bears live here?
No.
No. Polar bears in the north,
Polar.
penguins in the south.
And then there are two penguins.
Yes. This is one of my penguins, and this is the other one. And in the story we're going to hear today, there's going to be a polar bear and a penguin. Now, do real polar bears walk around and talk and things?
No.
Do real penguins?
No.
So this story is going to be make-believe, isn't it? Okay, let's look at the pictures. The name of this story is Dear Polar Bear. And when we start, we have... That's okay, as long as she's comfortable. One thing we have to remember when we hear a story is eyes are looking, ears are listening and hearing, mouth is
Quiet.
and we try to sit pretty still. Dear Polar Bear, oh my goodness, it's a big map of the whole world. And there's Mr. Penguin. Do you know what he does for his work?
Mail.
Yeah, he's the mailman. Let's find out what happens in the story. Polar Bear was unhappy. Look at his face. His igloo was so cold and empty. Brrr. Polar Bear thought about his friend, Koala Bear, who lived in a forest full of trees and flowers. Maybe he could send something to make this place a little brighter. So he sat down to write a letter to his friend. And here comes the mailman to get the letter. A few days later, Postman Penguin reached the forest, and Koala was pleased to have a letter from his friend. And this is a koala bear. He doesn't look like a polar bear at all, does he? And here's what the little letter said. Can you help me? My little igloo is all snow and cold, and there's nothing to look at. Could you please send me a colorful flower to make my house look prettier? I know how to make Polar Bear feel better, he smiled. Something higher up in the treetops to choose a special gift. And up he went. Polar Bear opened Koala's package as soon as it came. How exciting, he giggled as he opened up the package. Dear Polar Bear, I'm sorry your home is very empty. I've sent you 2 surprises to brighten it up. Keep the caterpillars in a jar and plant the seeds as soon as you can. Goodbye, Koala. Polar Bear's tummy rumbled. He wanted something yummy to eat, but his food was all icy and cold. I know, Polar Bear thought. I'll write to Sun Bear away in the rainforest and see if he can send me something tasty to eat. So we sat down and wrote another letter, and who's going to have to come?
A mailman.
Here comes the mailman, and there's, which bear?
Koala.
Sun Bear. Sun Bear was eating some delicious honey when the mailman came. I am very fed up, Sun Bear. As you know, my food is all icy and cold. It would be nice if you could send me something delicious to eat. Do you think you could do that? What do you think?
Yeah.
We'll see. The next morning, Polar Bear had a surprise from Sun Bear. This is what it looked like. I wonder what that could be. Dear Polar Bear, Bear, try some of my yummy honey. It's the best in the rainforest.
Honey?
I've also sent you some honeybees so you can have your own honey whenever you want it. Enjoy it. I'm sorry the letter is all sticky. I was eating some honey when I wrote to you. Polar Bear's tummy was full now, but his igloo was still kind of cold. I wonder how Panda Bear keeps warm, Polar Bear said. So he sat down and wrote another letter. What kind of bear? Panda Bear. When Postman Penguin arrived, Panda Bear was taking a nap. It's very cold here in the winter. Even with my furry coat, I can't keep warm. I don't know what to do. Can you please help me? A letter from Polar Bear, Panda yawned. And he wants something to keep him warm? I've got just what he needs. Something in that box. Shall we see? What does it look like?
Worms.
It looks like worms. Dear Polar Bear, I'm sorry you are cold. I hate the cold. Inside the box are some silkworms. Feed them leaves and pretty soon something will happen. Have you noticed anything else happening to the things that he sent? What happened to the seed thing? It started to grow. And do you see these little things making light in his house? And there's some honey for his waffle. That's making his house all cozy and nice. Thank you, Polar Bear laughed as he opened his present. But he couldn't figure out what those worms would be for. I'm so lonely, he said. I wish my friends weren't so far away. Then Polar Bear thought of another bear friend, Brown Bear. She always knows just what to do. Which bear?
Brown Bear!
So the next day, Postman Penguin found Brown Bear and her cubs playing by the river. She has to read the letter. It's fun to write letters to all my friends, but sometimes I just wish I had a friend to play with. I am so lonely. Brown Bear, what do you think I should do? Oh dear, said Brown Bear as she read the letter. Polar Bear sounds very lonely. I think he needs a pet to cheer him up.
I have two pets, a dog.
What? Do you? Well, I wonder what kind of a pet she could send. A few days later, Polar Bear opened up the package from Brown Bear and looked inside.
A fish.
She sent him a fish. I'm sorry to have been you are feeling lonely. My two babies keep me busy, so I've sent you a pet to look after. Make sure he has plenty to eat and nice clean water. Oh, I love you, little fish, said Polar Bear. I will name you Bubbles. And I'll get you some fresh water from your bowl. Look at this. Does that look like a scarf? Would a scarf keep him warm? You know who made that scarf? Those worms. Those worms that he said. That's making, and there's that honey in the jars. And look what's happening to the tree. Getting bigger and bigger. I wish I could see in here a little bit better, said Polar Bear. It's really dark out. I better send a letter off to my friend Spectacled Bear. And who's going to get the letter? The mailman. Spectacled Bear was just finishing his dinner when he saw Postman Penguin climbing down the rocks. And he has to open it up, and he tells all his problems and about how dark it is in his igloo, because he doesn't have electric lights like you do. And so Spectacled Bear said, I know just the thing. I bet you've seen these before. Polar Bear opened the package. His eyes sparkled when he saw the light. How many of you have seen in the summertime all these little bugs that light up? Fireflies? Fireflies, that's right. Now his house looked just perfect. But he still had a problem. You know what his problem is? He's lonely. he just wishes and wishes he had a friend. See, he has his scarf and his light and his food and his warm scarves and everything, but he's lonely. And then, knock came at the door. And who's there? The mailman. Boy, he's got a big package this time. Wow, it's a big package. Is that for me, Polar Bear said. What on earth could be in that big package? Surprise! There are all his bear friends from the forest and from the river to pay a visit to him and to make him happy. And he said, you know what? Thank you, thank you. You are the best friends in the world. Did you like that story? Yes, me too. Now I have another story that's kind of fun. A story about monsters. Now, are monsters real?
No.
Are monsters make-believe?
No.
Yeah, they are, and these are funny monsters. Wait till you see how funny they are and how the little boy in the story makes them go away. This is a funny book. After Mom and Dad had tucked me in bed and turned out the lights, I realized, or I thought, there were monsters in my room. Why are his eyes like that, big? He thinks there's something there, doesn't he? There was one sitting on my dresser, reading my train book and swinging his legs. There was one in my chair, and he was painting his toenails. Can you see that? That's a funny one, isn't it?
Actually, that's a girl.
And there was a long, thin one under my bed, and what's he eating? Popcorn. And there was a round one, bouncing my tennis ball against the wall. Boink, boink, it went.
I like the one.
And then there was one bumping around in my closet doing, oh, who knows what he was doing in there. And so I got kind of scared. So I went downstairs. Mom and Dad were at the kitchen table eating pie. I sat next to them in my own place. There are too many monsters in my room, I said. Dad looked sort of worried. Oh, that's not good. Mom gave me a little piece of pie on the plate. We sat munching and thinking. Did you know monsters are very afraid of ducks? Mom said. Dad nodded. Yeah. It's the quacking that scares them away. I didn't know that, I said. Shh, wait. Then I had an idea. Let's go upstairs and pretend to be ducks. Unfortunately, Dad said, we don't look like ducks. But it's the quacking that scares them, I said. I think I knew that, said Dad. So quietly, we went upstairs. Are they still in there, Mom said. I don't see them. Oh, yes, I told her, they are in there. Grown-ups never can see them. Just kids can see them. Because they're make-believe. I didn't know that, said Mom. So Dad opened the window up wide. Are we ready, he said. Help me count. 2, 3. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Do you know how to quack like a duck? Stop. Shall we see if it worked? Wow, I said when we stopped for breath. Those monsters are leaving in a hurry. First, the one who'd been sitting on my dresser, reading my train book, and swinging his legs, he rushed from my window. The one who'd been in the chair painting his toenails,
I like that.
he rushed right after him.
I like that one.
Do you? Then the long, thin one, he was the one that was under the bed. Remember what he was eating? Popcorn. He left too. Then the round one, who'd been bouncing my tennis ball, how did that sound? Boing, boing. Then the one who'd been bumping around in my closet doing who knows what, they all left. I said, They're all gone. Oh, thank goodness, Mom said. I snuggled down in my bed and waited to be all tucked in nice. Those monsters definitely won't be back, Dad told me. I know that, I said. Too many ducks. Do you think there were really monsters there? No, he just imagined them. But if you ever just go to bed and you think you're fraidy a little bit, what do you have to say? Quack, 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 quack. And what will the monsters do?
Run.
Run away.
There is no real monster.
No, it's all make-believe, isn't it? Does anybody know what a baby puppy, a baby dog is called? Whoops, I just told you. What's a baby dog called?
Puppy.
A puppy. What's a baby cat called?
Kitten.
What's a baby duck called?
A duckling.
A duckling. What's the baby sheep called?
Lamb.
A lamb.
Bottle lamb.
But this is a very strange story about a little one called a lammaroo. And I like the way these girls are sitting so nice. And Michaela, could you move over just a little bit? Because I don't think Darby can see. Go this way, honey. Sit over here by Red. There you go. There, now she can see. Okay. Are you ready now? Here we go. The lammaroo. I wonder what a lammaroo is.
A kangaroo.
Well, I thought it was a kangaroo, but it says a lammaroo. We all need to sit up, Finn and Sullivan. Yep, we all need to sit up. Thank you. In the middle of the wilderness was a lamb. He was very small, very sad, and all alone. Meh, said the lamb. I want a meh. Not far from the middle of the wilderness was a kangaroo. She had lots of friends, plenty of relatives, and as much food as she wanted, but she wasn't happy. She didn't have a baby. The kangaroo felt sad. So one day she hopped away from her friends and relatives. She hopped all the way to the middle of the wilderness, and there she found the little
Lamb.
Yes, she did. Meh, meh, said the lamb. And the kangaroo loved him right away. She popped him in her pouch and hopped back to show everyone how wonderful her new baby was. Now the lamb felt all safe in her pouch. See where he is? He wasn't alone anymore, and he was happy. He loved his new meh and all his new friends and relatives. Only there was something that worried him. He was different from everyone else. Everyone else in the family had smooth brown fur, but he was all covered with fuzzy white wool. Everyone else in the family could make huge high jumps, but he could only do little bitty ones.
Like this.
Then one day, not far from the middle of the wilderness, the lamb and his family found an old house. You see this old house? It was empty. All the people had gone away and nobody lived there anymore. And the lamb went exploring, and he went inside that little house right there.
That's a shed.
Yep, it's called a shed, you're right. And he found this thing. Do you know what it's called?
A bed.
It's on your bed. Mattress on the bed. He found a mattress, and inside the mattress, he found some things called springs. The lamb had an idea. He would put the springs on each of his feet, and then he would be able to jump very high. Do you think that's going to work?
Mm-hmm.
Let's find out. Hooray, he yelled. His idea worked. He could jump really high. Boing! He jumped out of the shed. Help me. Boing! He jumped over the fence.
Boing.
Boing!
Boing.
And he kept doing that. He jumped all around the yard. He was so busy jumping that he didn't notice that his man was watching him. Look at me! Look at me, he shouted. I can jump just like you. What? His man hopped out of the house wearing an old furry blanket. Look at me, she said. I'm covered in wool, and now I look just like you. The lamb stopped jumping. He looked at his meh and he felt very sad. He couldn't see her arms and he couldn't see her smooth brown fur and he couldn't see that safe, warm little pouch that he liked to jump inside of. You don't look like my meh anymore. And he started to cry. And you don't look like my little lamb, said his meh. The lamb looked down and saw that she was right. The springs were big and twisty and sharp and pointy. And there was no way he could go into his meh's pouch with those sharp things on. The lamb pulled off his springs as fast as he could. Then his meh threw away her blanket, so they both looked like themselves again. The lamb jumped happily back into his meh's pouch. For the very first time, he didn't mind being different. He didn't mind having a thick woolly coat. He didn't mind not being able to do huge jumps. He was perfectly happy being a lammaroo. He was the best lammaroo in the whole wide world. Was that a nice story? Yeah. Are they happy now? Yeah. Right, good job. You are good listeners. I need to sit really still and listen because this is a pretty important book. There really is a floppy cat. The floppy cat lives with a lady named Carrie Kay down in Sioux Falls. And when she walks along, you need to sit way up, sweetie. When she walks along, this is what her cat does. When he walks, he can't go like other cats. He goes zig, like that. Something happened to him when he was little, and now he can't walk like that. And sometimes he does this. He flops right down. So Carrie Kay loved that cat so much, she wrote a book about him. She wrote a book about how brave he was. Floppy was an unusual cat. He could always be seen swaying this way and that. And all the other animals looked at him. His sisters and brothers would all run, jump, and play. Well, Floppy would flip and flop in the hay. Even though he had trouble keeping up with the pace, he could always be seen with a big smile on his face. He doesn't care if he can't do it. One day, he sat watching all the other animals play ball. He wondered what it would be like if he didn't have to fall all the time. So he asked his mother, "Why is it that I always flip, flop, and sway? Why don't I move in a real cat-like way?" And his mother said, and she gave him a kiss, "Your floppiness is your own special gift." So from that day on, he didn't let that bother him anymore, and he just played in the shed and in the barn and thought of things to do. Now watch. He spent his days flipping and flopping around, and the big red barn was his own playground. He knew that red barn like the back of his paw. Every nook, every cranny, and the smell of the straw. One day, Floppy noticed something he'd never seen before. Look carefully at the picture. He saw a piece of cloth sticking out of the rickety floor. Do you see it here? What could it be? He was curious to see. That red piece of cloth was puzzling me. So he flipped and he flopped as fast as he could. Down the bales, through the stall, and over the big pile of wood. It's hard for him, all that jumping, but he got down there to look. And here he goes. As he reached the red cloth, he was all out of breath. His eyes wide with hope, and his hair was a mess. And then he grabbed the red cloth and he pulled with his might, and it suddenly came loose and sent him flying out of sight. Floppy landed on top of a tall stack of hay. He brushed himself off, and he hoped his tail was okay, because what's it look like happened to his tail? Yeah, it looked like it broke or it's got a bend in it. Then he looked and he looked and he looked all around, wondering where that mysterious red cloth could be found. Why can't he find it? Yeah, what is it?
A hat.
It's a red cap. Look on your head, his friends laughed from below. Can you do that again? That was a funny show. So Floppy looked over his shoulder and saw his dusty reflection. There it was, a red hat sitting in a silly direction. So he examined it closely. He looked inside and he looked out to see what that whole hat was about. The cap was soft and bright red in color, the likes of which he had seen no other. But inside the cap was a magic message. Wear this hat each day as you do this and that, and you will always become a more positive cat. Keep your whiskers held high and your tail to the sky. Exciting things will happen to you if you just try. So he put on his cap and he hurried out the door, something he hadn't done much of before. His newfound confidence put a spring in his stride, and he ran through the tall grass wearing his hat with great pride. He sang to himself as he skipped right along, a cheerful, upbeat, and carefree song. And this is what he said: I can be whatever I want to be, as long as I always believe in me. Happy and content, he watched the sun set, for this was a day he would never forget. So did it matter that he didn't walk along and run like the other kitties?
No.
No. As long as he put on his red cap, he felt like he could do it, didn't he? That's a pretty nice cat. How many of you have a cat?
I got one cat.
Just a minute. Does yours have a name?
I do. Whiskers.
That's a good name. You know, do you have whiskers? Do you guys all have whiskers?
I don't.
Well, you know, in the story, just wait a minute. In the story, they say you should hold your whiskers and your tail high. Do you have a tail?
No.
But you could hold your head high and put your shoulders back and be strong, can't you? Yes. What do you have?
And you know that we have two cats.
Two?
Yep. One in bold, one in blue.
Wow, that's pretty exciting too. You have a cat?
No, my mom's allergic. She sneezed. My papa's way allergic to
Yeah,
cats.
if people are allergic, then you can't have them. Otherwise, they're kind of fun. Do you think this cat was having fun in the barn playing?
Yeah.
I think he was too. Okay, you were good listeners.